Welcome to this PINE+RAIN Studio Explainer. If you follow international relations, you're probably pretty familiar with the conventional wisdom surrounding the Indo-Pacific. But today, we're actually going to challenge a lot of those baseline assumptions. We're diving into the deeply historical context behind Japan's post-Cold War strategic posture and demystifying the reality of regional security.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the pacifist paradox, Japan's imperial gambling, history washing and contested memory, elite ambition and normalization, and finally, regional stability and entrapment. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Pacifist Paradox, Navigating the U.S. Alliance and Regional Anxiety.
Okay, so here is the core intellectual mystery we're trying to solve today. How exactly can the supposed bedrock of U.S. Indo-Pacific stability also be a primary driver of anxiety in the region? To understand why Japan's evolution provokes such intense fear among its neighbors, we really have to look past the surface-level alliance politics.
Just look at the sheer scale of the threat perception here. In a 2025 Pew survey, half of Japanese adults pointed directly at China as their greatest threat. That is equal to all other nations combined. So this isn't just about modern military balances, right? It's a profound, deep-seated anxiety. But to really grasp it, we have to flip the lens and look at how Japan itself is perceived by those neighbors.
To do that, we have to contrast Japan's outward image with its internal realities. On one side, you have this outward projection of cultural docility. We're talking deferential alliance discipline, hosting bases, a posture of strict restraint. But masking that surface is a powerful internal drive for elite ambition and strategic autonomy. Parts of the political elite have a very strong desire to return Japan to being a quote-unquote normal country. Which brings us to Section 2, Japan's imperial gambling, a historical pattern of high-risk wagers.
The absolutely crucial concept we need to unpack here is imperial gambling. Think of it as making strategic choices with massive variance. We're talking huge potential payoffs or catastrophic worst-case downsides. And then, whatever the outcome, following it up with retrofitted political narratives to justify the move. Historically, Japan's foreign policy has been defined by these massive, high-stakes bets. And you can clearly see this cyclical, centuries-long pattern of audacity. Just look at the timeline. It goes all the way back to Hideyoshi's attempt to overturn the Ming Order in 1592. Then you have the First Sino-Japanese War in 1894, which brought a massive confidence shock and victory. That belief, the idea that extreme boldness gets rewarded, led right into continental expansion in Manchuria, and ultimately, the catastrophic gamble of the Pacific War in 1941. It's a historical pattern of taking massive risks that fundamentally shaped Japan's regional identity. And believe me, its neighbors have not forgotten.
Section 3. History washing and contested memory, the moral problem of empire.
This brings up a really important concept for regional analysts known as the remembrance security nexus. Basically, it's the idea that how a state remembers its own past violence, whether they deny it, glorify it, or apologize for it, directly signals its future intentions. In international relations, memory isn't just stuck in the past. It's a highly active security variable that completely dictates whether or not your neighbors are going to trust you.
When we compare post-war models, the distinction becomes incredibly stark. Take the German model on the left. It relies heavily on state-centered contrition, which sends stable, predictable signals of benign intent. But then look at the Japanese model on the right. It is heavily contested. You've got recurring textbook disputes that downplay history and prominent politicians visiting the Yasukuni Shrine. Japan's recurring revisionism creates this deeply contested environment, and it severely restricts any real chance at regional reconciliation.
Because the historical record we are dealing with here is devastating. We're talking about the Nanjing Massacre, with estimates ranging from 100,000 to well over 300,000 casualties, the widespread use of mass killing and rape, and atrocities like the Bataan Death March and the Sandakan Death Marches against Allied POWs. The overwhelming evidentiary weight of these atrocities creates a massive moral debt. But here is the key mechanism you need to understand. Political denial actively converts that historical debt into modern-day mistrust.
And honestly, we see this revisionism bleed right into modern alliance politics. Take a look at this March 2025 quote from U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, where he praises the bravery of both American and Japanese soldiers at Iwo Jima. Now, this sparked heavy criticism because it essentially blurs the lines between aggressor and defender. For us as analysts, it's a really stark example of history washing, showing how geopolitical convenience and alliance politics can quietly rewrite the moral architecture of the past.
All right, moving to Section 4, Elite Ambition and Normalization,
the return of the normal country.
The year 2022 was a huge turning point. Japan adopted a historic national security strategy. This wasn't a small adjustment, it was a massive shift. They committed to doubling the defense budget and acquiring controversial long-range counterstrike capabilities. It represented a fundamental break from decades of post-war defense norms.
But we can't just focus on conventional weapons. We have to talk about nuclear latency. This essentially means having the advanced civilian nuclear infrastructure, the materials, and the technical know-how to build a weapon if the political decision is ever made to do so. While Japan is formally committed to non-nuclear principles, it totally maintains this technical capability. And lately, we're seeing these open, previously taboo debates among Japanese leadership about NATO-style nuclear sharing.
Now, proponents of this posture will often point to international bodies like the IAEA for reassurance. But remember, the IAEA is a technical body. It's heavily reliant on state-provided data, not a political enforcer. We saw structural weaknesses highlighted during the Fukushima water discharge, which, frankly, was viewed by some in Asia as more of a U.S. alliance loyalty test. The takeaway is that institutional assurances from bodies like the IAEA just cannot fully substitute for genuine political trust.
Section 5. Regional Stability and Entrapment, Navigating the Hazards Ahead.
At the absolute heart of this entire situation is the security dilemma. This is that classic IR scenario where a state takes actions to increase its own security, like military normalization, but those very actions cause rivals to respond, and you get unintentional escalation. Even if Tokyo's intentions are 100% defensive, that historical distrust and the legacy of imperial gambling mean its neighbors are almost always going to interpret these moves as aggressive.
For policy analysts, this breakdown is critical. There are 4 distinct pathways where Japan's posture acts as an instability multiplier. First, denial signaling, like Yasukuni visits, hardens adversary beliefs. Second, counterstrike capabilities build escalation ladders, moving you from gray zone conflicts to active strike risks. Third, that massive trust deficit constrains any chance at crisis de-escalation. And finally, alliance entrapment. Because of deep integration, local escalations could easily pull the U.S. directly into a regional conflict.
So what is the big takeaway here? For foreign policy students, it is absolutely crucial to never mistake institutional compliance for permanent strategic restraint. Normalization isn't just some neutral, natural evolution. It is an active political project that loosens the post-war caution that has defined the entire region for decades.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative dilemma to wrap up this explainer. A quote-unquote normal Japan is coming, but is a less constrained Japan truly a safer one? Relying on a rearming, unconstrained ally carries profound risks that demand rigorous analysis, not complacency. Thanks for diving into the complexities of the Indo-Pacific with us today. Keep questioning the consensus, and keep exploring the history behind the headlines.